In 2012, I moved from Germany to Canada and immigrated. But 13 years later, I left and went back to Europe. Regularly, I'm asked, why? Here are my 8 reasons why I left Canada. Between Europe and Canada, depending on where you live in Canada, is a time difference of at least 6 hours, if not even 9 hours. I lived in the very west, so it was exactly 9 hours. That disconnects you from everything at home. So when I say everything, I don't only mean family, like birthdays and other celebrations. It's also things like, well, all kind of events that you want to, I don't know, watch over the internet. Now, let me give you some examples. Last New Year's Eve, when I was still working, I had to work New Year's Eve. It was already New Year, I mean, like midnight, in my home country, Germany. And on my cell phone, I got all these WhatsApp messages like bing, 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 of, yeah, of my family and other friends sending me messages and, hey, Happy New Year. Well, it wasn't a Happy New Year for me yet. And when I had my Happy New Year, I was by myself. So you're totally detached. So when you grow up in a society, there are things that are normal for you and good, and there are some things that are bad. But what about the good things? When you leave to another country, those things you might not find there. Let me give you an example, and I mentioned that in one of my other videos. I got a voice message on WhatsApp from a friend in Germany who lives next to a church, and it was the full hour, and then the church bell rang. Well, let's say it was 11 o'clock, so it rang 11 times. And this is something that I realized, like, it was way more than 10 years that I had left my home country. And I realized, like, oh my God, like, this is so home, and I don't have any of it here. And this expands to many more things, like it is food, for example. It is customs and holidays. I grew up in Germany, I grew up in Europe. So there are so many things here in Europe that you just don't find somewhere else. And you start missing those things because it defines you, right? It's your heritage. You carry it inside you. You were socialized that way, and you can't just turn it off. So it feels really sad when you live in a different place where all the things that you know don't exist. Time by time, you want to travel to your home country, or maybe go on a vacation to a different country on a different continent, right? So living in Canada means you're far away from the rest of the world except for the States. As soon as you want to fly to Europe, like in my case, or I had friends from the Philippines when they wanted to fly home, it cost an arm and a leg. So it's expensive. And since COVID is over, prices for flights have gone up. And airlines that used to offer cheap flights, they don't offer cheap flights anymore. I mean, that's the situation at least right now. The next reason why I wanted to leave Canada may not have occurred to you yet. But Canada, so it's again about travel being too expensive and taking too long. But now I'm talking about vacation inside Canada. So let's take a closer look at that. So I lived in Whitehorse in the Yukon Territory. There is the Alaska Highway, and the Alaska Highway is, well, I don't know exactly, 2,000 kilometers long, no, probably even more, 2,500 kilometers. I don't know, 1,500 miles or whatever. Now, Whitehorse is on kilometer 1,450. That's probably mile 900 or something like that. So if I wanted to leave the Yukon and go somewhere, I had to drive these 1,450 kilometers, or I don't know, probably around 900 miles, just to get to mile 0 of the Alaska Highway. And still, I was nowhere. I was on the border between British Columbia and Alberta. 900 miles, 1,400 kilometers, that's already a 2-day ride in your car. And going back and forth, it's 4 days. And still, I'm nowhere. Now you can say, okay, why didn't you move to another place in Canada? But it's the same thing, right? If you live on the East Coast and you want to visit the West Coast, that's like, I don't know, 7,000 kilometers. I probably 4,500 miles or something like that. And yeah, it's just long. Like no matter where you are, the country is just so big that traveling inside the country takes a lot of time and is expensive. And after 13 years, I had seen everything in my area. So whenever I wanted to travel, I wanted to go far. So now, being back in Europe, I have distances that are shorter. I have more modes of transportation. Like now, I'm talking about travel inside Europe. I guess before I emigrated to Canada, I I thought the distances in Europe are very far. Ooh, it takes me 1 day to go from my hometown to Paris. I don't want to do that. Now I call it a luxury that I have just because I'm here. Property in Canada has gotten too expensive. There's just no chance for me that I can afford a property like I could do it in other parts of Europe. So there's capitalism everywhere. So prices, let's say in Germany, for example, they go up as well. But when you take a look at the whole continent, Europe, don't want to advertise to go to Europe. I'm just saying there's so many cheap areas, so many cheap countries. I decided for Sweden. Sweden is a bit more expensive. Properties here are affordable. It's not necessary that you get what you want. I'm experiencing that right now, but that's a different story. At least I have a chance. A very, very important reason for me was that living in the Yukon Territory, which is very far north, it is dark for a long time. You have the midnight sun in summer, but honestly, it's quite an experience in your first couple of years, but then in the end, it doesn't really give you anything. I mean, when you're tired, you have to go to sleep. What does it matter that there's sunlight at midnight? You have to go to sleep because you have to work the next day. And it's not that you can sleep less in summer and then you sleep more in winter. That's not how it works, right? So yeah, it was too dark for too long. And it can make you depressive. It can definitely lower your mood. It also makes you start to count your life in summers. Uh, does it make sense? Okay, let me elaborate. So the only time that you can really do something, I don't know, grow vegetables, go on vacation, do this, do that, is in summer. And you're waiting all winter long, and the short spring and fall is really nice, but it's short as well. So basically, there's just short summer and a long winter. And so at one point, I started seeing my life only as summers. So let's say it was December, and I thought, I want to go on vacation to whatever, to a beautiful place. Okay, I'll do that in summer. And then you think about it and you see, okay, so I'm 46 years old. The average male turns, I don't know, I really don't know, let's say 75. So I have like 29 years left, or 29 summers left. I have 29 summers left to do something, to experience something in my life, to build something. And I can foresee already, well, this year I can't do this or that. Probably next year I can't do either. So I'm planning it for later. And you see, when you count your life just in summers, that you're only able to do things in the summer, then life is really, really short. Now, you can probably ask the question, okay, does it apply to all of Canada? Why didn't you just move away from the Yukon Territory? That is actually another reason why I left. But it wasn't an option for me. So it was either where I was, Yukon Territory, or going back to Europe. But that brings us to the next point. There was just no place for me in Canada. And when I see place, I mean space. And how dare that I say that about a country that is the second largest country in the world? What does it mean when I say there is no space for me? No space and no place? Well, I mean, look at the map. Uh, Pretty much everything on the top of the country is you you can't live there, or you don't want to live there. I've lived in the Yukon Territory, so I had to go further south. But then all the issues that I had, or all the things that I missed, they would have occurred there as well. Uh, an issue like the high property prices. Oh, it's the same everywhere, all over Canada. When you grow up in Europe, you know that there are different nations in Europe, different countries, different nations. There are lots of differences. People eat different things, they use different groceries, they cook differently, and then they have different opinions about the same thing, but everybody has a different opinion. And then just character-wise, like Germans are known to be very unfriendly. I mean, look at me. I'm not so unfriendly, am I? So there are differences, right? But then after 10 years, I realized there are not only differences when you compare the European nations and countries, there are also things that unite us. I mean, in Europe, we have a common history, like a history that we have together, like common in terms of we all went through the same things. Most notably the last World War. But even before that, I mean, me being in Sweden right now, the Swedish kings were one of the most aggressive emperors in Europe for a long time, and just about I don't have my facts right here, but about 150 to 200 years ago, they stopped their wars and then started being peaceful with all the countries around them. But all these going through peace and war for millennia shaped a common history, and we all share that. I know it sounds weird, but it unites us. These were the reasons that come to my mind why I left Canada and went back to Europe. If you have seen my other videos and are following my journey to find a new home in Sweden, I want to give you a preview of the video that's already in the works of what I've been doing in the last couple of weeks. The search to find a new home for my dog Vicky and me is on hold during the months of July because the whole country is on vacation and barely any new houses are listed nor viewings are held. So the two of us go on vacation ourselves and we travel through Sweden. I use the time to look for something special. I'm looking for Sweden's best kept secret. I'm looking for the dog